ANC members have marched to the City of Tshwane headquarters. They gathered at Marabastad earlier ahead of what the party calls the Buya Tshwane People's March. The party is marching against what it calls instability in the Tshwane municipality since the DA took over in 2016. ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula has conceded that instability in the metro has negatively affected the delivery of basic services. The march comes on the back of the election of a new mayor today. The metro has been without a mayor since Dr. Murunywa Makwarela was disqualified as a proportional representative councillor not long after his appointment.
We launched our campaign Buya Tshwane this past week, and this is going to be a rolling campaign in all the municipalities where we don't govern. As the African National Congress, we have accepted the blame of the DA for the past 7 years. They came into power in 2016 through coalition. We lost power, we respected them. They have claimed that they are in charge in Tshwane and they do the best, and where they govern better. Tshwane is an opposite of that. We have been able to demonstrate with empirical evidence about things that we have done. But what we have seen is a skewed development and delivery in this place. The black townships have actually deteriorated in terms of their situation. Operations that we have launched and programs, Fat Alles in the townships have collapsed. EPWP programs have collapsed. And programs like Wi-Fi in the townships have collapsed. So there is no development there. And people think that it is the ANC that does this. Our councillors do not have the power. As much as we have won most of the wards, but the power is with the DA coalition. It is them who decide the budget of this municipality. Our councillors are leading in the different wards, but at the end of the day, the power rests with the DA and its coalition. Of course, this municipality has collapsed in their hands. I mean, their own mayor have actually resigned. And when they do, they then subvert democracy. And the IEC have found them to be against the law. The ANC will deal with that matter as the time goes. All what we're interested in is to get this municipality back on track, bankrupt as it is, because what is important is stability and delivery for our people, and our people are crying for delivery on the ground. And we are genuine as the ANC to say this coalition of the DA, we know it will not have come into place if ourselves we did not commit mistakes.
Right, we are now joined via Zoom by political commentator Thobani Zikalala to weigh in on the Buya Tshwane People's March and developments at the Tshwane Council with the anticipated election of the new mayor. Very good afternoon to you, sir. Thank you for joining us here on SABC News.
Good afternoon, Ms. Letwaba. Good morning to your viewers this afternoon.
All right, let's talk about it then. It seems what people are saying is a pattern of protests that we're seeing in the country. What do you make of this particular protest, the Buya Tshwane People's March that is being organized by the ANC? I think that some opposition parties might be calling it grandstanding if we're to listen carefully to what the Secretary General of the ANC had to say this afternoon.
I think, Flo, this country is currently embattled by politics of spectacle, which what researchers before had called that we are embattled by a political spectacle, a politics of being seen to be doing something about things. Of course, this is, of course, enshrined in our constitution. Everyone has a right to. I think the ANC has taken a long time to realize that they are an opposition party and they need to start acting like one. I think the ANC in every municipality that has lost has failed to have the agility of a political or of an opposition party. I think the ANC in most of these municipalities, especially the metros that has lost, has operated like what one would call spoiled children who have this idea that the municipality belongs to them, and they spend most of the time trying to get the municipality back through these coalitions, other than always on the other side mastering the idea of what it means to be an opposition party. Will these protests bring about any change? Of course, any protest is about laying bare the issues that exist. It is then incumbent around on the DA municipality, on the DA metro, and the DA is a political party that governs the city of Tshwane, that how then does it respond to some of these allegations that have been made against it? Because the DA can no longer afford to ignore this allegation that their governance is segregated. I mean, this allegation is not only in the city of Tshwane, this allegation has been there in the city of Johannesburg and the city of Cape Town and many other spaces that the DA governs. The DA must take into account and be able to do an introspection in how its governance is perceived, because the DA comes into government with this ticket of building a one South Africa that is prosperous for all. It cannot be that the very same party is then accused of having a service delivery that is segregated, that seems to favor particular spaces and not favor others.
So would you say that then the Secretary General of the ANC, Fikile Mbalula, was making a good point? I mean, he said that, it seemed like a blame game in this instance, but he said that, it's basically not the ANC's fault. Our councillors don't have the power. The power rests with the DA and its coalition. So was he correct in what he said? Because some might see it as a sort of blame game.
Of course, politicians will always point fingers at each other, but through how we know that municipalities work, of course, the ANC may be correct in saying that their councillors do not have any governing power. But as an opposition party in their council, they must be able to come out and hold and bring the citizens of Tshwane and the residents of Tshwane into confidence and be able to table how they've been able to try and assist in making sure that good governance and in the city of Tshwane is there. How have they been able to hold the city of Tshwane government into account? Because it cannot be that the only way that we hold governing parties into account, especially when we are if parties are opposition parties and they sit in the legislatures and councils, that the only way they hold these governing parties into account is through demonstration on the ground. Of course, it's part of it, but most of the work is done in councils, in the legislative framework that allows for most opposition parties to be able to hold these parties into account. I think opposition parties in this country must be able to do that and do that sufficiently to make sure that governing parties are not able to do as they want. The ANC may be correct in that regard, but the ANC also must realize that even though it is in council, unfortunately for the ANC, it is also a provincial and national government who also have a duty over the oversight of some of how these municipalities work. Have they been able to exercise all the powers that are affordable, that are given to them by the constitution of this country and legislation? I don't think that the ANC has been able to do that. And as I said, that the ANC seems to all the times that it has lost power to be focused more in the political maneuvering of trying to re-establish coalitions that will give them power, because the ANC seems to have in their minds that they only are a governing party. But democracy does not work like that. They will lose some power sometimes, and they must be able to have the agility and the know-how of how to operate as an opposition party.
Earlier you said that this is all just, some sort of a political a spectacle, that, these political parties want to sort of be seen to be doing something. And if we look in recent times, we had the DA marching to Lithuli House. We now have the ANC marching there in Tshwane. And on Monday, we're expecting the EFF as well to march. What do you make of this particular timing, or why now? One would maybe think it's got to do with, the elections that are coming up, but one would think that also it's a little bit too far from the elections. But what do you make of this particular timing right now?
I think we seem to be at a time where, of course, all political parties wants to be able to raise their hands as those who hold governance into account. The other hand is that we have a DA that seems to choose to march not to government installations and government buildings and where the power resides, but march into where the governing party holds its head offices. You have the EFF, which seems to have mastered amongst everyone in the opposition benches, have mastered the politics of spectacle, the politics of mass mobilization. And you have the ANC, which historically has been a party that has been mass-based and has almost controlled the political imagination of South African society. They seem to have lost, because the EFF seems to have the control of the rage of South African citizens about the current situation in the country.
Yeah.
The political parties need to be doing this. The period is a period where everyone needs to want to gain control of the imagination of the rage of the South Africans. Of course, this will play a part towards 2024 elections, which many of us have said are going to be watershed elections, which are going to change a lot of things and how things work in this country. But of course, it cannot be viewed just as a political campaign. With the issues that this country faces, someone must be able to stand up to hold this government into account, because that is part of the duty of citizens and active citizens, to make sure that government is not able to just do as they please, even when in times of crisis like this ones. But for me, I see it as that. I see as political parties doing their duty, and also with this backing for the control of the political imagination of the rage of South Africans, which parties like the economic freedom fighters seems to have mastered the control of rage in this country, but also the control of that rage for what means. Some have made the accusation that this rage is also being controlled as a weapon to be able to pickpocket those who hold the power in this country. But of course, that is a topic for another day and time.
All right. Before I let you go, let me just take advantage of you being here with us still. Of course, we're going to hear about the mayor that is to be elected in a short while there in the Tshwane Council. How do you expect this to play out? And I mean, you know, we've seen this drama sort of playing out in the Tshwane Council.
For me, the first thing is that before we even look at it, how it pans out, South Africa needs to really look into how coalitions work, the stability of municipalities, and the ability of municipalities and government to be able to discharge on its duty of delivering public goods and services to the public, vis-a-vis the issue of political mandates and how they are received. Because if we don't have a situation where we have a way and a framework to understand and manage these coalitions, we'll have this continued interchange of leadership in government, which then tempers with the stability of municipalities, tempers with the governance, and also tempers with how public services and goods are delivered to the citizens. On how the Tshwane Council will go out, I think the way things have happened, we in our mind can see that it can still go towards the opposition parties being able to continue with their governance. But also, this will depend on whether the DA, in particular, as one of the as a leading party that has moved on the ticket of being a replacement and an alternative to the ANC, is able also to operate politically differently from how the ANC maybe has operated. The DA has been accused of being a bully, of being a party that believes that because it's a huge, it's a bigger voter base, then it must dictate to these parties who come into coalition with them. That cannot continue to be the case if the DA wants to govern, because the so-called minority parties seem to have woken up to this idea that they are the kingmakers. These parties, even though they have got the bigger voter turnout margins, cannot govern by themselves. And it seems that the ANC was able to maneuver this in the city of Johannesburg. It remains to be seen whether it was able to maneuver this. It will be able to maneuver this in Tshwane. For me, how the city of Johannesburg and the city of Tshwane and the Tshwane ANC regional leadership and the ANC have been able to maneuver the city of Tshwane through, since it has lost power, has left a lot to be desired, because they seem to have always had an opportunity to take over government, but how they've managed coalition talks seems to be their downfall. If they can be able to do differently this time around, we may see a new governance in the city of Tshwane, which gives them the opportunity to do and fix this mess they allege that has been created in that city.
All right. It's always a pleasure to hear your insight and your views there. Thobani Zikalala, many thanks to you, sir. We appreciate it.